Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Yami. I'm a board-certified pediatrician, certified health and wellness coach, author, and speaker. I'm also a passionate promoter of the power of diet and lifestyle in preventing and reversing chronic disease and bringing joy and longevity into our lives. This podcast is focused on plant-based nutrition, habit formation, motivation, and mindset so that you can have the tools to live the best life possible. Are you ready to get started? Let's do this.
We're having broccoli.
Hello, veggie lovers, and happy Taco Tuesday. I am trying out a new platform, so we'll see how this works. But I'm going to be talking tonight about my favorite books and documentaries, essentially a plant-based starter kit, if you will. But before I start talking about that, I wanted to tell you about my tacos that I had tonight. I hope you had tacos too, if it's Tuesday when you're listening or watching this. So we had barbecue chickpeas with kale and onion. And I actually did this all last minute. I hadn't even decided what tacos I was going to make tonight because it was a super busy day. But I had made some chickpeas yesterday in the Instant Pot, so they were ready. And I just sauteed onions and garlic. And then I added my chickpeas, added some barbecue sauce and my kale, made sure everything got soft. Then I had some cashew cheesy sauce and salsa and fresh avocado. And I just put that in my taco. The boys loved it. It was amazing. So super easy, only took me about 15, 20 minutes, and we were ready to go. So I'm going to talk about what are my favorite books and documentaries to get started on a plant-based lifestyle. I think that, whenever you're first starting, you're looking for all kinds of resources, you're wanting more information, you're wanting to feel like you're not alone. And I think that there's a lot of advantages, especially to watching documentaries, because documentaries, they're meant to be inspiring. They're meant to kind of shake things up and have you think a little bit differently than usual. So it's especially great at the beginning of your journey. I also like that they usually include personal stories and, things like that. So you get to see other people's stories, their transformations, their struggles. And I feel like that really connects to the viewer. So I think documentaries are a really good way to go. They're also easy to share, easy to digest, and they can have a really big impact. Some of the ones that I'm going to talk about, they've had a really big impact and big influence. So I want to talk about one book and 4 documentaries that I feel are a great kit to get started. So when it comes to books, my favorite is this one, How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. It is pretty significant, although there is a really big part of this book, like this part, the end. What's that? Maybe like an eighth of it is all references. So it looks super significant, but it's actually quite easy to get through. I have both read it and listened to the audio version, and they're both great. So whether you like to actually read or you'd rather listen to it, the audio version is really great, and it's read by Dr. Greger. And basically, this book goes through the top ways. So the top 15 causes of death in the United States. And then it goes through the evidence of how a plant-based diet can help decrease the risk of dying from those things. So it's not how not to die ever. It's how not to die from the top 15 causes of death in the United States. And it's all evidence-based. It's all referenced. And it goes through all of the top chronic conditions. And I think that this is just a really great evidence-based resource that you can read or listen to and share with your friends. And I just really love it. So if I was only going to pick one book, it's going to be this one. Okay. And I trust Dr. Greger, and he's got his website, nutritionfacts.org, that you can go and watch all the videos and see all the references. It's full transparency. You can go find the references and read them yourself if you want. So that is my top book recommendation if you're just starting out and you just want to read one. Now, say you don't want to read or you don't want to listen to a book, you just want to go straight to the documentaries. There's 4 that I recommend, and they each hit different pieces of your plant-based journey. So the first one is a classic, Forks Over Knives. I say classic, but this one came out in 2011, and it has changed a lot of people's lives. Like, this has revolutionized a lot of people's lives. I don't know how many stories I've heard from people that they watch Forks Over Knives and they changed immediately. And this one is focused on food, and it's focused on chronic disease. And you learn about the China study, and you learn about, heart disease and all of those things. So I think that this is a really great one to look at the health aspect of why eating a plant-based diet is beneficial, particularly a whole food plant-based diet. Okay. So that one covers the health aspect, and I just like it. I like that it is, it's a classic. It's been around for a while, and I think it's a great resource. Now, another documentary that's newer, came out in 2019, is called The Game Changers. So a lot of people have seen this one. And yes, it covers health, but what I think is really cool about this one in particular, is that it goes a step further and it looks at athletes, because that's always an excuse. Like, okay, yeah, you can survive, you can make it by on a plant-based diet, but if you want to be a competitive athlete, it's not going to work. But that's not true. And The Game Changers is just really well made, very well referenced, fact checked, because Dr. Greger helped with this one as well. And it also touches on something that I think is particularly relevant, and that's erectile dysfunction in men. But I think that this is a really great documentary, especially for people that are really interested in their fitness or might be competitive at any level in their athleticism. It's very well made. It's funny. It's well balanced. And it just takes it a step further. So it's not just about health, but it's about the health of an athlete. Like, can an athlete thrive on a plant-based diet? Okay, so Forks Over Knives, Game Changers. The third one is Cowspiracy. Now, Cowspiracy is looking at the environmental impact of what we eat. Cowspiracy came out in 2014. I can't believe it's been that long, but it is a really well-made documentary as well, and it is very eye-opening. It can be alarming in some places, but it really takes the perspective of how can we change what we're eating in order to help our planet, in order to decrease our carbon emissions, decrease our waste. Let's look at it from that perspective. And so it looks at the advantage of a plant-based diet from that perspective. So I think it's a really great documentary, well made. As far as, there's maybe 1 or 2 scenes in there that might be a little difficult for young kids. And I feel like the first time, maybe the first 2 times that I watched Cowspiracy, it landed really heavy. So that one might be a little bit harder for some people to watch, just because you just feel the weight of the world on your shoulders after you watch that one. But it's not super graphic or anything. There might just be a couple of scenes that might be, especially for very sensitive people or young children, might be a little difficult to watch. Okay, so just viewer discretion on that one. But overall, it's not like you're going to see a bunch of gruesome, gory things. And then the last one, which this is going to lean more towards veganism rather than plant-based diet for health, environmental reasons. And that one's called speciesism. So this is a lower budget documentary, but I just really love it. I love the way it was done. I love the points that it brings up, some of the arguments, and how it takes a philosophical approach. So it is lower budget. It's not like all shiny and fancy and beautifully made, but it is funny in some parts, and it really makes you think. Like, if you like philosophy, if you want to look at the other whys of why your values might be aligned to eating a plant-based diet or to living a vegan lifestyle, then I recommend speciesism. It's not super graphic, but there might be a couple of scenes in there that might be difficult for people to see, okay? Especially if you're very sensitive and very empathetic. Okay, so that's the starter kit book, How Not to Die, Forks Over Knives, Game Changers, Cowspiracy, Speciesism. Okay, so that's, if you're only going to do just a few things, that's what I would start with. However, I wanted to give mention to a few other books and documentaries that I really like. One of the very first books I read when I was transitioning to a plant-based diet is called Diet for a New America by John Robbins. Recently, in the past few years, came out with the latest edition. It's a really well-written book. It goes through every single one of those topics in narrative and written form. Okay, so if you want to learn about the health aspect, the environmental aspect, if you want to learn about the philosophical, ethical, compassionate aspect, it covers all of those things. And it's very well written, and I just really like it. That's just a really good book. Another good book that looks more at specifically starch-based plant-based diets is called The Starch Solution by John McDougall. I think he has some really great things to say. Eat to Live by Joel Furman is really great. Of course, the China Study by T. Colin Campbell is really good. I just think that one, for some people, might be a little too sciencey. I mean, I guess How Not to Die is pretty sciencey, so that's maybe not fair to say. And so those are all really great books. As far as a book that is looking more at the vegan perspective, or the ethical reasons why you may consider not eating animals, is a book called Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his last name. I haven't read a ton of books specifically on the veganism topic, but that one is definitely impactful. It is at some points a very difficult book to read. It's at some points pretty graphic, and will just, for those sensitive people, it can tear you up. Okay, so just know about that. And then other documentaries, What the Health has been very popular. I think it's also a very well-made documentary. The same people that did Cowspiracy made What the Health, and What the Health came out in 2017. So it's very good. A lot of people have watched that one, and a lot of people have changed their diet because of What the Health. And then another documentary that's very popular that I watched at the beginning of my journey is Earthlings. So this one has been around for a long time. It came out in 2007. It is a beautiful documentary, but it's very graphic in some points. So I've watched it once. I have no desire to watch it again, not because it's not a very well-made documentary, but because it can be difficult. So I feel like for some people, they may need that, they may need that kind of in your face sort of thing. And I don't think it's a bad approach, but I feel like for me, once I've seen it, then I don't necessarily need to subject myself to it over and over again. But if you're curious, it's definitely available. And for people who want to know the truth of what happens to animals, whether it's on the factories or whether it's for fur or leather or those kinds of things, it's, It's a pretty intense. So Maria Jose, hola. So she says, I watched that last one, couldn't finish it. I've heard that a lot. But did you feel like it made a difference for you? That's what I would like to know. Like, did it make an impact in your heart? I think it's hard, it's hard to watch it. But I feel like I'm doing what I can now. And I definitely recommend it, but I recommend it with a disclaimer. Okay. So I hope that's helpful. And in the blog post for this, when it goes up on the podcast, I'll have a link to 47 different documentaries. There's so many now. And that's why I wanted to narrow it down, because people are like, okay, where do I start? What should I watch? What's a good one? And these are the ones that I recommend. The book, How Not to Die, Forks Over Knives, Game Changers, Cowspiracy, and Speciesism. So I think those are really good ones to start with. And all of them are available for streaming on different platforms online. So just put it in Google, look it up, and you'll be able to find somewhere where you can stream it online through one of the services that are widely available. So I hope that that's helpful and that this has an impact on you and then answers some questions. But I just wanted to give you a place to start and let you know what has been most impactful and, the ones that have really stayed in my heart that I recommend. So thank you for watching and for listening. And I hope that you have a very plantastic day. Bye. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to having you back again next week. A very special thank you to the band Rocket Surgeons for permission to use the Broccoli song. To find out more about the Rocket Surgeons, please visit their website at rocketsurgeonsband.com or Facebook at Rocket Surgeons Music. Please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also, all of my social media links can be found in the podcast description. Send me a message and let me know what you think of today's podcast. Sharing is caring. Please share, rate, and review my podcast, and drop me a line if you have ideas for future episodes. Thank you once again, and have a plantastic day.
We're having broccoli.